Hi, my name is Gerhard Schwander and welcome to Selling Power TV. Today we have the pleasure of meeting with Andris Soltnes and Prabha Sinha. They're the co-founders and co-chairmen of CS Associates. And both have co-authored a wonderful book called How to Create a Winning Salesforce. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy, you've written this wonderful book. Tell us about it.
So the book, it's about how to build a winning sales force, and it's really the result of many years of working with students, both MBA students as well as executives through the courses at Northwestern University at the Kellogg School, as well as working with several hundred companies. The book has 3 parts. The first part basically is a part which talks about conceptual frameworks for how you would view a sales force. The second part drills in on specific decisions that all sales leaders need to make effectively. Decisions like who should we hire, how do we pay people, how should we set goals, best training programs, decisions like that, how to establish a culture. And then the third part does something which we think is unique. It basically looks at significant problems that sales forces have, like how do you manage turnover, how do you deal with complacency, and comes up with a thinking framework for how you would address those issues very effectively. And the book is capped off by a chapter on a company who's implemented many of these ideas, and we talk about how they went about doing that, and that's a chapter on General Electric.
Prabha, your background is engineering?
Yes.
Now, can you give me an analogy, the degree of difficulty for designing, let's say, a microchip versus the degree of difficulty of designing a successful sales force?
Well, the sales force is infinitely harder in the sense that if a microchip, once you design it and it has some parameters, it operates the way you think you designed it. Whereas with the sales force, design is only the beginning, because you can have the most wonderfully structured and designed sales force, and once you put it out there in front of customers with other salespeople, with the environment, it can operate in all kinds of different ways.
Andy, you give your reader a sort of a framework on how they should look at sales force. What are some of the images that you present in the book that sort of complete the picture, so they look at the entire bandwidth of all the challenges and opportunities?
Some of the frameworks that we've built are the result of people telling us about what they think a successful sales force is. So when you ask people, they'll say things like, well, we've made our numbers, we're growing, we've taken business away from competition. They'll tell us things like our customers are pleased with our product service offering, we have high repeat rates, we've established really effective relationships. They also tell us there's something about activity, that that our people are calling on the right accounts, they're talking about the right products, they're delivering a viable value proposition. And people also tell us about the people themselves, that we have highly knowledgeable people that participate with a really strong management team, that we have a very strong culture, and all of a sudden you get this picture that has many components. It's kind of a moving collage, if you will. And one of the things that we tried to do is to try to take all these kind of disparate dimensions and put them in a framework. And in fact, they do follow very sequentially, that if I can get the best possible people, they'll engage in the right activities, they'll drive customer results, and they'll drive company results. The other thing that's missing from the picture is the things that we do as an organization which will affect all the downstream components, and those we call the fundamental drivers, the things that shape the people who work with us, like really good recruiting processes, really good training processes, really good management team. We talk about how you define the roles for our people and how we structure. Should we have generalists? Should we have specialists? How do we size a sales force? Where do we place people? How do we align territories? How do we motivate, put down motivation programs? What would be a good compensation plan? How should we go about setting goals?
Prabha, can you help me understand how you work with your clients when you meet with a sales leader and they're obviously very satisfied and proud of what they have created, and ideas that may come from the book may not resonate with them because they may not be open to innovation because their satisfaction with the status quo prevents them from engaging in innovation.
So let me just take three very different examples that are in the book. So one is an example of United Airlines, where things were so broken and they were in bankruptcy that there was no complacency and pride in the leaders, and they were all a new leadership team.
There was desperation.
Exactly. So in that case, they took the whole thing and reworked the system.
Right.
How they were going to approach customers,
Right.
every aspect of the selling.
But it's the easiest client to work with.
Exactly. Now, let me just contrast that with, there's a story about Novartis, where there was really this culture of improving continuously. So then the story is around what are the levers of improvement, those drivers that Andy talked about, finding the few that we're going to focus on in any year. So, for example, one of the ones they picked on was how do we improve the quality of our people globally? By understanding what our best people do and what things do you put in place to do that. So there was a hunger for improvement. I'll give you a third example, which is at General Electric. It was the same story, and that's covered in the book. And that is that even though they were very successful, there was this idea that they need to keep raising the bar. And the book gave them a blueprint of how to do it.
So how do you get managers to look at that objectively? Because if somebody is as successful as General Electric with their, let's say, their sales process, then I imagine there's a resistance. Why should we break it? Because it's not broken.
Some organizations have a culture of continuous improvement. So for them, just because they're good, they already realized. But suppose that there's an organization where there is this complacency, that then sometimes the force has to come from the leadership or some force of change from the customer.
Right. I wouldn't call it complacency. I would call it neurotic pride.
Or perhaps, yeah.
Let's continue the conversation tomorrow. Andy and Prabha are going to talk about one specific element that can be improved anywhere, which is incentive compensation. Tune in tomorrow.